They call her Black Widow, do they? Well, you know, when I first saw Mrs. Obama, I did take a bit of a head movement backwards, because it seems to me that she has a significant role in what goes on in that family circle. And again, you know, there's supposed to be a coupling of genuineness, of caring. When you look at Michelle Obama's background, and you find that she was appointed as a executive administrator at the Chicago hospital, and the moment that her husband was elected to the Senate, her income was raised by $200,000 overnight. And then you look at what her job was. On one side of the hospital is a well-to-do area, which the hospital serves, able to afford medical insurance, etc. And on the other side of the hospital is a very, very poor area, overwhelmingly black. And of course, black people from the poor area would turn up at the hospital emergency department wanting treatment when things have gone wrong with them. Her job was to make sure that they were taken away from treatment there into doctors in the poor community who had a fraction of the ability to react to the health problems these people had. Now, of course, if a white person was employed by the hospital to turn away poor black people so they couldn't use the hospital facilities, then that would be called racist. So you employ a black person. But you employ a black person who's willing to do that against what should surely be against all instincts. What kind of world is it? I mean, let's just take a deep breath and take a step back here, because we can get caught in it and things seem normal because we get used to them. We're turning people away from treatment because they have not the ability to pay. What the hell is going on there? So that tells me something immediately about Michelle Obama, that she is willing to play that role. And I think that she's as much a fake, personally, as Barack Obama. And Barack Obama is one of the major, major fakes. And interestingly, and this has surprised me a little bit, the number of people, former Obama supporters, who are seeing, if you like, the error of their ways, is happening much quicker than I thought it would. Because he is turning back so many of the things that he said he would not do. He's doing the opposite. And it's the usual thing in politics. Tell them what they want to hear, get into power, do what you always intended to do. And there's no better example than Barack Obama. Mr. Fake President.
These people always seem to live long lives, don't they? The Kissingers and the Father Bushes and the David Rockefellers and the Queen Mother in England lived to 102, and the Queen in England now is well of age, because they're not given the same treatment, health treatment the rest of us get. One of the bloody reasons, and also other things that they do which are very dark, satanic, and to do with the energy of children. But Father George Bush, he's such a classic purveyor of this madness, this insanity that they want to impose upon the world. And as presidents go, he's a bit higher up the ladder than, say, his son or some of the others. And I would want to confront him with not just questions about his role through the years in so many things, because coming from a bloodline family, he would have been brought from birth. He would be developed to be in the positions that he was in. head of the CIA, and vice president, president, and all these other things that he was involved in. But there's another area of Father George Bush which is something that a lot of conspiracy research doesn't cover, but really needs to, and that is pedophilia. It's a deep rabbit hole, but when you connect the dots, you can explain why the ratio of pedophiles to positions of power, especially in the higher levels, is fantastic compared with the ratio of pedophiles in the general population. But this man, Father George Bush, has not just been responsible for the most unspeakable, grotesque, unimaginable sexual abuse and torture of children using various electromagnetic technologies and such that cause enormous pain for the kids who are tortured. This guy's been responsible for the deaths of goodness knows how many children. And I've met some of the adults that he abused as children and survived, and they are absolutely scrambled mentally, emotionally, and physically because of the horrors that this man put them through. Now, there's a number of reasons, Luke, why we need to look at this and expose this. First of all, to stop the kids having that done to them, but also to let people see into the minds and the mentality of those that are behind this global conspiracy. But there is something about their genetics which has deleted empathy. It's deleted the ability to feel the consequences for others of your actions. And if you think about it, empathy is the fail-safe mechanism of human behavior. Because if I have empathy, feelings for how you will feel from my actions, then there is an immediate limit on my actions. I'm not going to do something to you because I have empathy with how it will make you feel. Delete that, there are no limits. So I've said to people for nearly 20 years, don't look at these people and judge what they would do on the basis of what you would do, because it's not the same thing. You know, orchestrating attacks on 9/11, which killed 3,000 people, around 3,000 people. But the empathy with not only those that died and those that suffered horrors in those buildings as they collapsed, but all the families. We could never do that. Delete empathy, and 3,000 people dead on 9/11, and you know, so what? That's the attitude that they have, and people can't kind of understand that. They think, no, they would never do that. Well, hold on a second. If you will take a little child before the age of 6, 5 or 6 is when they want them, you will put them into mind control projects that involve grotesque trauma, emotionally, mental, and physically trauma. And you will sexually abuse them. You will use cattle prongs to as a punishment and as a way of getting them into a state of total submission to your will. You will torture them. You will make them watch animals and children being sacrificed as a form of incredible trauma. You'll find out their greatest fear, and you'll make them experience it over and over again to break them mentally and emotionally. And you will do that over and over and over again. That's Father George Bush, and he's just one of them. you would pepper bomb Baghdad and have no emotional consequences. You would do 9/11, have no emotional consequences. You would put a virus out there to kill large numbers of people, no emotional consequences. You would put stuff in vaccines designed to affect people mentally, emotionally, and physically. You would have a eugenics operation. You would plan and scheme to dramatically reduce the population, and you would have no empathy with the consequences of your actions that others would feel. That's the mentality, Luke, that we're dealing with. And because they're not like the general human population. They don't see the world and they don't see life in the same way. And that's the force we're dealing with. And we need to get streetwise to that. And then we'll have a chance of dealing with it. Because why we say, they'd never do that. No, you'd never do that. They do it every day.
When you look at the American political scene, particularly since the 1980s, I mean, it's kind of breathtaking when you look at it. Because, first of all, what most people won't realize, because the mainstream media won't tell them, is that the Clintons and the Bushes are extremely close bosom buddies. They were running drugs through the Mena airstrip in Arkansas when Clinton was Bill Clinton was governor. That was in my books in the mid 1990s. You know, I remember tracking the Clintons a long time. I mean, crikey! I mean, they've not just got skeletons in the cupboard; they've got whole cemeteries. These people, and what we are looking at, therefore, is this idea that America is free because anyone can become president. Well, let's go back to 1980. It was Reagan-Bush, which in fact was Bush-Reagan in terms of the power in the White House. Indeed. And so Father Bush had two terms as a de facto president. He then had one term as the official president. He's then replaced by 2 terms of Clinton, who is replaced by 2 terms of Boy Bush, who is replaced by Obama, who now could be replaced very likely by another Clinton. I mean, there are more than 300 million people in America. How can that be unless it is absolutely contrived? And if it's contrived, who's contriving it? These are the questions that people need to ask. And when you ask them, the answers are very different to the world that people think they live in.
Yeah. It's all about asking the right questions. People just don't ask. They react, and they do. I remember when you used your message of your classic message of problem, reaction, solution is so rudimentary to understanding organized societal life on this planet. It's how the game is played. And all these clubs, all these so-called religions, political parties, it doesn't matter. They're simply control mechanisms to enable the download to be completed. And at whatever color paint the download is, it doesn't matter. It's still a download of barriers, parameters, and limits. And you're not supposed to go out. You're supposed to stay inside.
They should read whistleblowers' books. They should read, if they want to know, my book from the mid-1990s, And the Truth Shall Set You Free, and The Biggest Secret that followed. And see how the Clintons and the Bushes were running drugs through the Mena airstrip in Arkansas during the Iran-Contra scandal. And when Bill Clinton was governor for Arkansas. They should see what a farce it all is. Are you listening, Merrill? What do you know about Hillary Clinton? Well, she's a woman and I'm a woman. What more do you need to know? Because the fact that she's a woman is irrelevant. It's not whether you're a man or a woman or black or white. It's the content of your character, as Martin Luther King said. And so this attempt to elect Hillary Clinton as president is not about electing the first woman president. It's about electing the first female asset of the hidden hand and the corporate networks that up to this point have been controlling the men in the White House. The outcome for women, the outcome for children, the outcome for America and the world is not going to change because Hillary Clinton's a woman. It would change if Hillary Clinton was a woman not connected to the hidden hand. But she is, and so nothing will change. She will, if we let her do it, and she becomes president, she will take the world into World War III with the West pitched against Russia, China. Because that's the plan. And she will do anything to advance the plan because she is completely and utterly controlled by those that direct the plan. She said in her speech just now how she'll take on the banks and take on the corporations. What? You mean the ones funding her to a limitless amount so that she will become president to represent their interests? Hillary, Hillary. It's extraordinary. And Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton talking about their wonderful family life and their Bill Clinton and their life together. Anyone even fractionally close to the Clintons who's done a modicum of research into the Clintons knows that it's a marriage of convenience for both of them. They go off, do their own thing. But, oh no, it's the Clintons. It's a marriage of convenience. That's all it is. I mean, Bill will be rubbing his hands now about all the money they can make selling privilege to the highest bidder if they get in the White House. Just like they did before, when he was in. What a joke it all is. And then we come to Trump. I watched Trump's speech at the Republican convention. And I watched the crowd with the banners and the sticks. And I watched how they reacted to him. Exactly the same as people just reacted to Hillary Clinton. When I was watching the Trump speech last week, I looked at the scene, and it could have been Barack Obama when he was accepting the nomination of the Democrats. They call them different names, Republican Democrats, but the mentality of the crowd is just the same. They are looking for a Messiah to save them. And last time with Obama, it was the first black president. Oh, the Messiah. Well, that worked out well for black people, didn't it? What's he done for them? Nothing. And now we're talking about the first woman president with Clinton. What will she do for women? The same. Because they're both serving not women, not black people, but their hidden hand.
If you take the European Union, if you started out at the end of the last war, and what we're heading to now had been suggested, one bank, one currency, centralized control of a superstate. Understandably, I know what my father would have said, who fought in that war. Excuse me a minute, can I just have a quick word here? We've just spent the last 5 years with 55 million people killed and many more severely injured to stop that happening. And you're asking us to do it without a bullet being fired. You must be joking. Go and have a cup of tea. So, what the stepping stones technique does, although it knows where it's heading, it does it in stages. It gets away with what it can get away with first of all, and then starts to move it along, and it presents every step as independent of all the others so you don't see the pattern. So what was suggested after the last war, not a European superstate, because that had no chance at that time, it was the common market, just a free trade area, ladies and gentlemen, nothing to worry about. And by the way, if we don't join, we starve. Little problem like that, you know.
Well, we better join then, I guess, you know. So, suddenly, some of the states of Europe start to fuse their economies together in a free trade area. Now we're in the web, because it's suggested very strongly that if anyone pulls out, there will be economic chaos, certainly in the short term. So now we're in the spider's web. So the process then starts of evolving a free trade area into a European centralized superstate. And first we start having commissions which start dictating to nation states. Then we have talk about the central bank. And interestingly, you know, one of the things that was put forward to justify the one currency was the currency chaos in Europe. Like when the pound fell out of the European monetary system after the government had spent a colossal fortune trying to keep it in there a few years ago. Well, you know, this currency chaos, one currency would sort this problem. Interesting, therefore, that the person who attacked the pound and caused that chaos was a frontman for the House of Rothschild called George Soros, a world currency speculator. George Soros, Bilderberg Group. The Chancellor at the time, who spent all that money and eventually pulled the pound out of the monetary system of Europe, was Norman Lamont, Bilderberg Group. Now, when I was talking in Sweden just a few weeks ago, I was talking about this, and some member of the audience in Sweden came up and said, I couldn't believe it when you mentioned that guy, George Soros. He said, what happened in Sweden, he said, was before we went into the European community, all the opinion polls were very strongly against going in. He said, then this guy, George Soros, Bilderberg Group, started attacking the Swedish currency. The Swedish government tried to defend the currency under the prime ministership of Carl Bildt, Bilderberg Group, and eventually chaos ensued. And a great fear started to go into the Swedish psyche of, oh my goodness, we need protection. What's going on here? We can't stand alone. Even speculators are taking our currency apart. After that, the opinion polls for going into the European community flipped to the majority saying yes, and in they went. So now, stepping stones, we're now in a situation where we are light years away from what we actually joined. Stepping stones. Only now are some people saying, excuse me, have you seen how far we've come? It's interesting that right along the line, as the stepping stones are put forward, anyone who challenges the stepping stones is then manipulated into continuing the journey. I was speaking in Denmark at the time. I was in the Swedish area also, and what they did was had a referendum which voted against Maastricht, against the European Union. They then had another referendum not long afterwards, which then said, yes, we'll go in. And as one national newspaper editor in Denmark said to me, he was told by one of the big pro-Maastricht people in Denmark, we're just going to go on having referendums until we get the result we want. That's how it works, because we are in the land of the free.